This is Gemara Nedarim Daf Lamed Aleph. All the learning has been generously sponsored for an incredible schoshidah for Micha Benina Basara and Mivarisha Bastavayra. B'siyat Dishmaya, the learning of the entire Chabura, Talmud Torah Knegei Kulam, the infinite power of each and every word of Torah learned Berabim should bring Micha Benina Basara and Mivarisha Bastavayra a Shidduch Chagon Bekarov Mamish. We're holding at the bottom of Lamed Amid Beis. We just finished learning the Mishnah. The Mishnah that differentiated between two different types of Nidarim, Anoider min ha-yiloidim and Anoider min ha-niloidim. Noldim, two different entities. And we're going to discuss, and we started discussing yesterday, the Gemara began, according to Shita Meir, and the Gemara threw in, the Chasurei Mechser V'Achi Ketani. Actually, let's go a little bit back. Let's pick it up from there. The Gemara taught us for about 15 lines at the bottom of Lamed Amid Beis, Hanoider min ha-yiloidim. If someone made a neder from the yiloidim, then muter bin noiladim. What are the noiladim? So the Ran over here speaks out. These are those who are asidin. In the future, they will be born. So someone makes a neder from the yiloidim, those who are not born, he's forbidden. Those who are born, he's allowed, those who are not born yet. One more time. Then you're mutter bin noiladim. Min ha-noiladim, and if you made a neder for those who are not born yet, also be yiloidim. You are forbidden for those who were already born. Also be like Rameir, and on this is the detail that Rameir is arguing. Even if you made a neder from those who are not born yet, you're still allowed to get benefit from those who are already born. So Amarli Rav Papa le'Abaye. So Rav Papa comes along and says to Abaye l'meimra, based on that which you just said, the noiladim, the word noiladim, the misyaldin mashma, sounds like it's referring to those who will be born in the future. Elameata, but asks Rav Papa to Abaye, if that is true, we have a problem with the pasuk. Says the pasuk, Shnei banecha noladim lecha be'eretz Mizrayim. Two sons that will be born, hanoiladim. Should we say that here too refers those to be born in the future? What's the problem? The problem is that this is referring to Menashe and Ephraim, and they're already born. What's the other option? Must be those, it's referring to those already born. Is a different pasuk that's a problem. The pasuk says, David, Yoshiyahu says the pasuk, both the son that is noilad to the house of David, his name is Yeshiyahu Shemai. Hachanami here also the Have, but it asks the Gemara Vadai Menashe loiba. But second, Menashe was not born yet. Ela mashma hachi umashma hachi, and this is of course how things get confusing. Says the Gemara, each of the terms could really imply whatever you like. A very important klal that we're seeing here, and it's going to come up numerous more times in the Masechta, that Nedarim go by the way that people talk. And therefore, says the Gemara by us, this is how people talk, this is going to be this story. We conclude on the bottom of Lamed that what's his intention? His intention is those who the derech is to be born. Lafuke mai, says the Gemara. Lafuke dagim va'ois. This comes to exclude different type of births. Fish and birds we know are born from eggs, and they come out alive from their mother, so thereby it puts them into a different category. And we continue with Lamed Aleph, Amid Aleph. We're going to have lots of Mishnayos today. Says the Mishnah, Hanoider, if someone makes a neder, Hanoider Miyoshei Shabbos, someone makes a neder from those who rest on Shabbos, Asr Bi Yisrael. He cannot get benefit from Yisrael because they are those that rest on Shabbos, Asr Bi Kutim. But says the Gemara, it's forbidden from Kutim. They are not included in this Mishnah. And of course, whether the Kutim were indeed full-fledged Gerim, whether they were Ger Rayisim or Ger Emesim, Machlekes, which we touched upon and we'll touch upon again soon. Machal, if someone makes the second neder that he's answering those who eat garlic, be Yisrael, va'aser bikutim. What's the halacha? Aser be Yisrael. Again, machalishom. Aser be Yisrael, va'aser bikutim. But let's say someone says me'oile Yushalayim. Those who go up to Yushalayim also be Yisrael mutar bikutim because it's a din specifically by a Jew. So says the Gemara, "My Shofsei Shabbos." What does the Mishnah refer to? They made a neder from Shofsei Shabbos. If you tell me it's those who follow Shabbos, so I tell me a case about kusim. The same case is, or I should say, should apply to Goyim that if they rest on Shabbos, if it's a din of vacuum, or rest on Shabbos, you even say akum. So says the Gemara, no, you know what it means? Those who are commanded regarding the Shabbos. Yachim, a Seifa asked the Gemara, what's the next case? Also Yisrael, Umoter Bekutim. Amai, who says the Gemara again, within the understanding that Kutim were proper Gelim, they were commanded. Amar Abaya Mitzuva V'oisa. Says Abaya, the Mishnah is referring to both, one who is both Mitzuvah, commanded, and he does that which he is commanded. Betarti become Aisa. On the first two cases, Israel v'kutim mitzuyin ba'aisin. Akom ha'u. Whereas the non-Jew, the Oivdei, the Avdi Aisin, the Avdi Aisin ve'ina mitzuyin. So if we're to find a guy that indeed followed the rules of the Torah, they're Aisin, but ve'ina mitzuyin, they're not considered commanded upon the mitzvah. That's why the Goyim are excluded. Ba'ili Yerushalayim, then Yisrael mitzuvim ba'aisan, kutzim mitzuvim ve'enan aisin. It's a din specifically on the Yidin. However, the kusin are, yes, mitzvah, but ve'enan aisin, they don't actually fulfill the command of being oile regel, and since the kusim are not oile regel, therefore they are excluded from this neder. We continue with the next second Mishnah on Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Koinam she'eni neder l'bnei noyach. So it says, I'm making a neder, I'm not getting a benefit from bnei noyach, mutar b'Yisrael v'aser b'akum. Ask the Gemara, the obvious kasha b'Yisrael, minafik mechal bnei noyach. I don't understand. The Yidin also came from Noyach. Answers the Gemara, Kim Iskish Avram Iskish Al Shemei. Once Klal Yisrael is referred to as the children of Avram, but Avram Yitzav Yaakov, therefore we lost this title. Continues the Mishnah on the third Mishnah. So it says in Neder that I'm not getting any benefit from a Zera Avram. What's the halacha? He's allowed to also be Israel, but mutter, he could do business with a guy. Ask the Gemara of Ve'ika Shmuel, but what about the din of Shmuel who says that, Ve'ika Yishmael, not Shmuel, but there are the Yishmaelim, we know the Arabs who are also children of Avram, and therefore the whole world, but there are everyone's descendants. Kibi Yitzchak, Yikar L'chazara, says the Gemara, Ksiv, Ve'ika Esav, B'Yitzchak, V'loi, Kol Yitzchak. Explains the Gemara, there still is Yitzchak, if the whole point is Avram and Avram, Kibi Yitzchak Yikari L'chazara Ksev, again, one more time, V'ika Esav, B'Yitzchak V'loi Kol Yitzchak. They're not all the children of Yitzchak, and that's the reason why Yishmael is not included. And we continue with the new Mishnah, Baruch Hashem, the video is back up and running. Says the Mishnah on the bottom of Lamed Aleph, Amid Aleph. She'eni nehene me Yisrael. Someone makes a neder that he's not going to get any benefit from a Yisrael, from a Jew, which of course, one of the largest ways of benefit one is going to have, the Ran explains over here, is that to do business with such a Jew. So what is the status? If I'm not getting benefit, is there any form of business, explains the Mishnah, that I'm still able to do with a fellow Yid? And says the Mishnah, you could. It might not be good a business tactic, but says the Mishnah, you could buy for more than the market price, sell for less than the market price, and then it's not called that you are getting benefit from a Jew. In the reverse, if someone says Sheisal Nehenin Li, he makes an edit that you, the other Jews, cannot get benefit from me. So now it's the opposite. I have to make a scenario now that you're not getting benefit. So what am I going to do? What I'm going to do is I'm going to buy at less than market price and I'm going to sell higher than market value. Now the Mishnah almost parenthetically points out, but no one's going to listen to you. No one's going to actually do business in such a scenario because you're ripping everyone off. The reason you're doing it is so you don't want to be over your neder, but says the Mishnah, that's going to be the scenario. And finally, case number 3 in the Mishnah, you can't get benefit from me, and I can't get benefit from you. So now it's not going to work to sell more and buy less, higher market value, lower market value. Bottom line is, someone's going to be getting benefit. Says the Mishnah, Yehenu le'akum. What do you have to do? You have to go and do business with a non-Jew. So that's the Mishnah dealing with at what level I could still have an interaction with you and not to be considered that I'm being over the neder. So says the Gemara, Omar Shmuel says Shmuel, if someone buys a kli from a craftsman, you're in a store, you're inspecting a brand new mug, and you're sitting there and you're looking at it, you're trying to figure out how big is it the right size, etc. Levakra, to check it out, and then v'nenas biyadai. And this happens, all of a sudden, you get a phone call, you drop the mug. All of a sudden, it slips out of your hand. What is the halacha? Whose obligation? Who is the one that is achroi, responsible for this item that I'm checking as I'm looking at it to buy it? Says the Mishnah Chayiv. The person looking at it, the loikeach, is obligated. What's the reason? The reason obviously is Alma. What do we see? Kasavar hanas loikeachi, says the Gemara. Shmuel obviously holds that when I'm buying something, I am the one benefiting from it. 100%. In every form of interaction, in the world of responsibility, we always have to figure out who is the one that is gaining. What's the difference? Because the one that is gaining will determine at what level of obligation you have. For example, we know there's something called a shomer chinam, something called a shomer sachar, something called a shayil. What is the difference between the different types of watchmen? And of course, whether we verbalize that you're a watchman or not, in the eyes of halacha, that is what you are when you are holding an item. So a shomer chinam is you give me an item to watch for free. So who is gaining? You're gaining because I'm watching your item. I am not gaining at all. The reverse is a shomer sachar. That's a symbiotic relationship. That's mutual. We're both gaining. And the level of obligation on the shomer parallels his obligation that he has and who is benefiting. For example, shomer sachar, they are both benefiting. Finally, the highest level of benefit by myself is if I'm a shoyel. If I'm a borrower, you're giving me your item, you just gave me your car to borrow, you gain nothing. Okay, maybe if I'm a kayin, you gain that I'm driving your car. Maybe if I would be an adam chashif, you would gain that I'm driving your car. That's a different sugya. But in general, I'm borrowing your car, so I am gaining. Are you gaining? No. So what's the halacha? The halacha is a shoyel is obligated 100%, even on unavoidable mishaps, even on einsim. So says our Gemara that when I'm checking out this item and I want to see if I want to borrow, what am I essentially? Similar to a shayel. Why? Kasavar hanas lekeachi. I, the buyer, the purchaser, is receiving all the benefit. That is the statement of Shmuel. What does it have to do with us? Let's see right now. This is going to relate to our Mishnah. Asks the Gemara Tanam to the Mishnah Shein Israel. Case number 1 in the Mishnah. When I said I don't want to get benefit from other fellow Jews, what do we say you're still allowed to do? You're allowed to sell for lower value. So what's the obvious implication? I could sell it to you for lower than market value. But to sell it for even value, you're not allowed to. But why not? if we're learning right now that hanas loikeachi, that the purchaser is getting the sole benefit, and we don't view it that the seller is benefiting, so that I should even be allowed to sell it to you for equal value, because through the eyes of Shmuel, when you're buying something, you're the one solely benefiting and not me. So why am I obligated, it says the Mishnah, to sell it at a lower than market value? I should be able to sell it at regular market value. V'i hana lokeach, he articulates the Gemara, I feel b'shaveh b'shaveh, you should be able to sell it even shaveh b'shaveh. That is the question. Answers the Gemara, Mas Nisan, there's Enukimta. Says the Gemara, there were some surrounding details to the case of the Mishnah. Mas Nisan, Bizvina de Rami al Apei. The case is that merchandise is in a low demand. It's a market that people aren't buying. That's the reason why in such a scenario, even selling it shaveh b'shaveh will, yes, be considered benefiting the seller. Meaning, it's true. Shmuel's din is correct, says the Gemara. In general, do we view it that the seller is gaining? No. It's fully the buyer gaining. But if we're in a scenario where no one's buying merchandise, then of course it is considered a gain by the seller. And that is the reason why the Mishnah said you have to sell it for lower than market value. Ask the Gemara, Imkene Reisha. Let's go back to the Reisha. What did it say? Lokech b'yoser. The Reisha said that what? You could buy it for more. And furthermore, says the Gemara, Ema Seifa, this is the question which is obvious. Anytime we make an ukimta in case A of the Mishnah, it has to follow through to the end of the Mishnah. But of course, over here, the end of the Mishnah says the exact opposite din, so we're not going to be able to say the same ukimta. We can't say it's the same case. Ask the Gemara about Ema Seifa, Sheisrael, Nahan and Li, in the flip side case. When I make a neder that other Jews can't get benefit from me, what was the din, says the Mishnah? But asks the Gemara, if the scenario, if the market of the Mishnah is one in which merchandise is a low value, then afilu shaveh b'shaveh, you should be able to sell it for the regular value, and that should not be called that other Jews are getting benefit from me. So answers the Gemara, an answer that everyone can anticipate, whether it's such a desirable answer or not. Seifa bizvina charifa. No, the seifa is the opposite. Then the Mishnah is dealing with a case in which merchandise is in a high demand. The beginning of the Mishnah, merchandise was low demand. Seifa is high demand. Iachi asking the same question. Ella, so finally, almost concedes the Gemara. Ella masnisan bizavina mitzai. The Mishnah has to be dealing with that the merchandise are equal. Udishmuel. When did Shmuel say this? If I'm going to check out an item, it's considered that I, the buyer, getting sole value, sole benefit, and the seller is not gaining. Shmuel's case is bizvina charifa. Shmuel must be talking about a case where merchandise is in high demand, and the fact that I found the cup, there are no cups, and I finally found the cup and I'm holding it, so it's considered as if I am getting the sole benefit, and that is why Shmuel said that if I drop it, I'm the one that's going to be fully obligated. Says the Gemara, Tani Kavasi the Shmuel. We have a raya to Shmuel that says, Alokeach kelim min atagar. If someone purchases kelim from a merchant, l'shagron lebeis chamav, you're buying some items to send to your shver, to send to the father-in-law. V'amar loy, and he says to the seller, if he accepts it from me, meaning, if my shver, if the father-in-law accepts it, then I'm going to pay you. But if he doesn't accept it, then I'm not giving you the full value. I'm giving you toivas hana. So what's toivas hana? Is just the benefit that I'm going to be getting. So says the Gemara, what's the halacha toivas hana shebehen? What's the halacha in such a scenario? Nensu, if on the road there was an aynes bahalicha as you're traveling, chayiv bechazara. But if there was an aynes on the way back, then potter memneshu kenoisei sacher, because it's considered as if he's like a paid watchman. And this is going to be the case that we're going to be able to see this yisoid of Shmuel. This is the raya that we're going to see. Let's see if we could pin the line in the Ran, in which the Ran is all the way. Let's try for one moment. It is getting a little bit late, but for one moment, let's try to pull up this Ran over here, in which the Ran comes along to explain the raya. What's the raya over here? So says the Ran is all the way on the bottom. Ubechazara pater neshikonosi sachar. Menoisei sachar is pater al einsim. But for gneva advedi you're going to be chayiv, as we saw in Gemara Bam Mitzia. Shkol shayil achar shekoli meishel asa inasa shem misach. Tol men enu meenu muchich lahasam mehem brayis that the kivin da alicha avi shayil bechazar miya nehi de la avi shayil shem misachar have. So therefore we're going to see the same thing as the case of Shmuel, that when you are the person having control of the item, of the merchandise, then you are going to be the one that's benefiting. Let's look actually the previous Ran. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit. Let's look at the previous Ran. 1 second, no one can see the Ran. My face is blocking your Ran. That's a little bit better. The Ran is in the fourth wide line. It says, V'nenas b'halicha chayiv. Why? L'fi kol hana sheloi. From the fact that if on the road there was an oines, you're chayiv, that is the raya, says the Gemara to Shmuel. Okay, says back into the Gemara, we continue. The Gemara continues with a story. Hahu safsira. There was a middleman. The safsira is the guy who buys and sells. He's the one, the guy in the middle. Who safsira? The shakal chamra lizvini. That he took a donkey to sell to someone else, lo izvin, but at the end of the day, couldn't find a buyer. Bahadi adadi, in the interim, as he was returning the donkey, isnis chamra, there was an aynes. What's the halacha? Chayva Rav Nachman l'shalume. So we see the same halacha. Rav Nachman obligated him to pay. Ask the Gemara 1 second. He said, Rav Nachman ensu ba'alicha chayiv b'chazara bater. 1 second. We just said if there's oynis that you're picking it up, you're the purchaser. It's considered in your rishos. That's when you're chayiv. But if the oynis is when you're sending it back, you're pater. In this case, you were sending the donkey back. So why is he chayiv? Amar le chazara de safsira haylacha hi. The chazara of the safsira, when a middleman is returning it, is considered as if it's coming to him. Why? Says the Gemara, you're right, he's sending it back. But says the Gemara, he's still a middleman. And if someone bumps into him, if I'm bringing back the donkey, and I'm about to give it back to you, the seller, and someone bumps into me, they say, wait, I want to buy a donkey. Am I going to say, oh no, go to him and deal with him? I'm going to say, great, I get commission. So since at every moment I'm always trying to make the sale, therefore it's always considered, even when I'm returning it, as if it's on the way to me, as if I am still the purchaser. And we conclude today's shir with a long and lengthy Mishnah on the second half, Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, about 8 lines from the wide lines. So it makes a neder, I'm not getting benefit from someone who's an Arel, someone who's does not have a bris milah. Says the Mishnah, what do I refer to? This is like we saw in the previous Mishnah, is that when someone says, I'm not going to benefit from a certain entity, how do we in halacha translate that entity? So says the Mishnah, we translate Arelim, Mutar B'Areli Yisrael. If there's a Yid without a bris milah, you're allowed to get benefit. Va'asar b'moili akum. And you're not allowed to get benefit even from a guy that had a bris. Why? Because when someone says a term of Arelim, he's referring to Goyim, and those are those he cannot get benefit from. And now on the flip side case, if someone says a benefit that I'm not going to get benefit from someone who has a bris milah, also B'Areli Yisrael, he's not allowed to get benefit from a Yid, even if he doesn't have a bris milah, because when someone says the term, one with a bris, he refers to a Yid, and even if a guy has a bris, he's still allowed to get benefit. What is the term Arel? El L'Shem Akum. Says the Mishnah, term Arel in the words of Nidarim is not the literal translation. Did he yes or no have a bris milah? It means El L'Shem Akum Yeramayim Degayshin Emar Ki Chol HaGoyim Arelim. As the Mishnah says, as the pasuk says, all the Goyim Arelim Chol Beis Yisrael Areli Lev. Vaymer another pasuk Vaya Pilashti Aral Azeh. This Pilashti is in Aral. Vaymer and a third pasuk Bentis Mechu Benais Plishte Benta Aluzno Benais Arelim. So we see multiple psukim, says the Gemara, that we are seeing that Goyim have the Shem Arelim. Rav Elazar ben Azariah Oimer. Says Rav Elazar ben Azariah. There it is. Says Rav Elazar ben Azariah. Another pasuk. Elazar ben Azariah Oimer on the second white line. Mu'usa hi arela. The arela, the one without a bris milah, is ma'os, is repulsive. Shenisganenu bal rishayim, because the rishayim are called disparagingly via their lack of bris milah. Shenamar gichol hagoyim arelim. Rabbi Yishmael Leimer concludes the Mishnah. We know always like to end on a positive note. We know Masechtas end and Parakim and even Mishnayis. When we have to bring down negative entities, says the Mishnah, let's end on a positive note. Rabbi Yishmael Leimer says Rabbi Yishmael, and here's the bris Torah. Anyone needs to make a bris, remember the Darim Lamed Aleph on the base. 13 treaties, covenants, brisim that are made with the bris milah. Milah is great because it pushes away Shabbos. It should be a malacha to cut off the arel, cut off the foreskin, and we know it's mutter. It's teicha Shabbos. Chameira, Shabbos chamura. Shabbos is very chamer. Rishua ben kara chaimer g'dayla milah shlonin l'loy l'moisha at tzaddik aleha m'loy shah moisha at tzaddik. Very interesting. I don't know how many times throughout Shas we find that Moshe Rabbeinu is called Moshe Tzaddik. Says the Gemara, he didn't even wait 1 hour when he had to do a bris milah. Nechemia Migdala Milah Shadaychas and a Goyim, so as a nega on his makam arel, you're still allowed to cut it off. Rabbi Yomer Gdala Milah Shkol HaMitzvah Shasa Avram Avinu Lo Nikra Shalim. When was Avram Avinu called complete? Only Ad Shemal, only once he did the bris milah. Shneimar Zalich Lefanai Vayitamim, you're complete. Avarach Gdala Milah Shal Malihi Lebarak Kadosh Baruch Hu Es Ha'olam. Without bris milah, God would never have created this world. Incredible. Shneimar Kayamar Hashem and Leibrisi Yomim V'Leila Chukay Shemayim V'Aretz Loi Samti. And B'siyat D'Shmaya will pick up from the Gemara in the next year.